Hey, what's up, everybody? Ray here, and what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through the latest for August of 2022. I do this every few months for myself to kind of see like how power racks increased in price, but we're going to look at the specs and we're going to go through the prices of the latest 2x2 and 3x3 racks and kind of compare them. I'll talk a little bit for those of you that are like new, want to know what's best bang for your buck, that kind of thing. I'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly this is a chance for you. I actually would recommend for those of you that know everything here, what I'm talking about, actually pause this and see like what are the prices? What are the width, depth, height of the racks and everything? It's got a nice spreadsheet with everything laid out so you can really see what it's like. All right. So the first thing that I want to say, you see all the racks that I did compare up on the screen here. Clearly, I did not compare every single rack because it's kind of like ridiculous to do that. And it's impossible for me to keep track because I do keep track as these change, like to say what are updated prices. Like even like I did this last comparison in April, and the prices today versus April have completely changed. So like they've gotten bigger because of inflation. So you kind of got to pay attention to it. But the first thing I want to mention, I start out, the cheapest rack I have here is $279. All of these include shipping. So I have shipping calculated into the cost, $279, and the most expensive rack is almost $2,000. And that's because of shipping. I'll talk about that when we get there to the 3x3 1-inch. But the one thing that I want to say is that cheapest rack, every rack on this chart, if you're watching this video, every rack I'm talking about here will work for you, is more powerful than what you can lift. So we'll talk about that, but I'm just going to say all the racks here are more than enough for all of you. So you can, then we'll start to talk about like why would you pick one versus the other and cost and specs. First thing we're going to do is we are going to start out with the 2x2 power racks. So 2x2 power racks are usually 14 gauge steel. So they're a little weaker steel. And they're usually called like, these are the beginner racks. These are the racks you see on Amazon. These are the racks that, Rep and Titan each offer a 2x2 beginner rack. I actually started with one of these racks. You can see the height. All the heights are 83 inches of these three. These are three of the main racks that are recommended in the home gym Reddits, Discords, pretty much anyone that's a beginner that wants a beginner rack. These are kind of the go-to things. You can see they're very price friendly. $279 for the fitness reality rack that has great reviews. These all have decent attachments, and you can see the depth. They're pretty small racks, height-wise and depth-wise, and even width-wise. Well, I guess width is pretty average, 48, but 46 is pretty slim. But these are beginner racks. Why are they beginner racks? Mostly because they're not as thick. They're not 3x3. They're 2x2. 3x3 is kind of the standard. And the steel's a little weaker. It's 14 gauge versus 11, which the other 3x3s are. For you wondering why would you pick or not pick one of these, pretty much anyone lifting will be fine with one of these racks. The problem with these racks happens when you start, like, let's say you're squatting 450 pounds. When you rack the bar on one of these racks, the rack's gonna, if it's not bolted down or secured really well, you're gonna feel some movement. I had one of these racks, and all three of them are pretty much the same. And when I would do the Viking press, which was like a side-to-side movement, like there was a lot of movement in the rack. I didn't feel unstable or unsafe, but there was movement. And that's kind of the big difference in these racks, is these 2x2s, is there's just more movement in them. They're not as secure, and there's a higher chance that if you're lifting really heavy weights, you can potentially cause the rack to fail. But we've seen some pretty big tests online of people comparing these with like 700 pounds, and the racks are holding up just fine. So, and there are some big guys, strong guys using these 2x2s and doing just fine. But, okay, so you see it's $279 for the cheapest one. So you want to know the cheapest rack for most people, it's going to work. Boom, $279 fitness reality right there. However, most of us, like myself, who lift a lot and really like fitness, we want something beefier. And I wanted something more sturdy. So you move up to the 3x3s, 11 gauge steel. That's kind of the standard. These are the racks that are going to outlive you. These 3x3s, whether it's 5/8 or 1-inch, are going to outlive you. They're stronger than you are. They're mostly made for commercial spaces. They are powerful. So you can see they cost more and there's more options with them. And let's kind of talk through that. So let's start with the 3x3 by 5/8. And the 3x3 by 5/8 racks, the reason that they're 5/8 is these racks have something called west side spacing. If you're not familiar with the West Side Power Gym, powerlifting gym. They're like a really famous powerlifting gym, lots of world champions and stuff like that. But they have something called west side spacing, which means the holes on the rack are really close together. And that's really cool because what it means is you can like really adjust where like your safeties are going to be, or your J cups for benching and squatting and stuff like that. So it's a really nice feature. These are what's considered mid to high grade racks. These are kind of like in between. Some people, this is like their be all end all, and other people prefer the 1 inch, which I'll get to in a minute, which are more like the premium racks. But these racks are super powerful, 11 gauge steel, and you can see the first rack, which is the Titan X3 in 80 inches. You can see the heights of these. They go between 80 and 90. Some of them have multiple options. I put the lowest end depth in here for these, but like the Titan X3 has a depth of, I think, 24 and 36. Same with the Rep PR4000 has an option for 30, but I can't, as I said, I can't put every option. So what I did is I found like the cheapest option. So like this is the Titan X3 80-inch cheapest option. This is the X3 90-inch cheapest option you can buy. Same with Rep, Rogue, and Griffin. These are all very popular racks, all recommended by a lot of people, all used by a lot of people, all with very good feedback. But you can see the cheapest one is $599, and then they go up to almost double that price. And you get to this question of what starts to become important here. Why would someone pay double the price for a 3x3 by 5/8? Remember, these are pieces of steel, like it's 3x3 by 5/8 and 11 gauge. Some of the difference come in finish of the product. What you expect, like the quality. Also, like what does this company, Titan versus Rep versus Rogue versus Griffin, offer in attachments? Like what kind of attachments are you looking for to purchase can make a big difference. Is there an option for a lat pull down, for example, or lever arms, or whatever attachment you happen to want? So things like that are what makes the difference. Another thing is the height, depth, and width can make a difference. Like I actually have this rack, right? I have a kind of a Frankenstein rack where I have like these two racks combined together. But you can see my width is 48 inches. Rogue has a rack width of 49 inches, which means like when you're racking the bar, it's a little harder to get on the J cups. I prefer thinner, so I actually would prefer the Rep 47 inch. 48 is kind of like a mid ground. I think 49 is like big, but that's for me. That's my preference. Maybe not for you. You don't mind that whatsoever. But you can see some of these differences. Like Rogue only offers in the 90 inch, which is why it's going to be a little more pricey than the Titan Fitness 80 inch rack. But you can see the prices here, and you can see all the specs for the 3x3 by 5/8 racks. And if I'm going to be honest here and recommend a rack out of all the racks that I think like most people who, if you know you're a person who's going to lift, going to use it, going to buy attachments, I hands down recommend one of the Titan X3s because it gets you into 3x3 11 gauge, and they're so much cheaper. Like 2 to 3 times less expensive, and they have really good like all the attachments you can mostly want, which is one of the reasons why I went with it, because I just couldn't justify the cost increase. All right, so then we get up into the 3x3. These are 11 gauge and 1-inch steel. The reason people like 1-inch versus 5/8 is usually the 1-inch racks. First of all, it's a thicker bar going through, so that makes it a little more secure. But you've got to remember, when we talk about like the strength of a 5-inch bar or pin versus like a 1-inch bar or pin, it's like talking about like, well, my car goes 200 miles an hour, but I could get one that goes like 275, but like I never drive above like 100. So like that's what you're starting to compare. Like the 5/8 inch pin is like more than you could ever do or break or handle. So like the 1-inch is really, I mean, and everyone says, yes, it's way overkill. It really is. But the 1-inch racks don't have west side spacing, which means they're not really close together. They're 2 inches apart, and that's fine for most people. And the other thing is that they also have holes going up both sides. So if you wanted to use the side of the rack, there's more options on it. So that's one of the big difference between the 5/8 and 1-inch. Now the 1-inch racks are usually the premium racks, and some brands like Sorinex only carries a 5 or a 1-inch rack. So we get to the height. You can see the heights of these. They don't really make many 80-inch racks. So if you're looking for 80-inch, yeah, you have the Rep PR 5000, but you're probably sticking with the 5/8 because of your size and the height of your ceiling. Like that's really what you're going to start to look at. So you really start to consider the height there. But we have the Titan series rack, and you can see it's a little bit cheaper. It's $879 than the cheapest version of the Rep. And then we've got the Rogue, which is, so all of these are pretty much in the same price. I mean, and honestly, I'll even put Titan. These are all pretty much in the same ballpark. All the Titan, Rep 5000, and Rogue 3 RM3 Fortis, and the Griffin. All of these are within like about $100 to $200 of one another, so they're pretty much in the same ballpark. When we start to get into the Rogue Monster RM3 2.0, and it starts to get a little more pricey, but there's a lot more, you ask, well, why is it so much more? Like, why would this be more than this? And it just starts to get into, there's a lot more options. Like you can get custom colors and all kinds of stuff like that, which get a little pricey. What was interesting is I priced the Sorinex Dark Horse. This rack was only like $1,100 or $1,200. But the shipping to my house, and I just assume it's going to be that much, it was like $700. Like, whoa. So all these other racks, I mean, as I said, I included shipping into all of these. But this Sorinex, like, cool rack, but man, that's like, the shipping just kills it and makes it totally not worth it versus any of these. And now you'll ask yourself, well, let's say like you want a rack from Rep or Rogue, like you're set on those brands, those are the attachments you like. And, I really think that this Monster series is hardly any more money for both Rep and Rogue. So like the Rep 4000 and the Rogue Monster Light, I almost feel like I almost wouldn't get those when I could get the premium one for just like $100 more or something. So I didn't really like those options. I really like the 1-inch options for those brands. Titan, again, their Titan series rack is cheaper. However, even though it's cheaper, if I was going for a 1-inch rack, and I'll tell you which one I would actually get, hands down, would be the Rep 5000 for a few different reasons. I do like the Rogue Fortis as well, which maybe I would consider too. But I'll tell you why I would pick the 5000 over the Titan, even though the Titan's like $100 some, like $150 cheaper. First of all, the Titan series rack doesn't have a lot of attachments. It really doesn't. It's kind of disappointing. It almost like it's like a rack that doesn't make much sense. And the lap pull down for it is like almost $1,000. Versus the Rep PR 5000 has excellent attachments, and the lap pull down for that, the cheapest version, is like $400 if you wanted a lap pull down. So it just seems like it's a much better, like much more optioned rack. I like the Rogue as well, but 36-inch depth is way too thick for me. Again, same with the Titan. So that wouldn't work for me personally. So that's me personally. So this is kind of the comparison, all the different prices. So if I were recommending racks to someone, what would my overall recommendations be? Brand new beginner, not sure what they really are going to like, or just they're going to lift really light and they kind of aren't into it too much, or you're not sure what they're going to do. I would definitely tell them, just get the Fitness Reality. $279, you can't beat that price. It'll get them into it. Let's say they don't like it, sell that thing on Marketplace for like $200, hardly lost anything. If they really want to get into a brand, they could go to the Rep or Titan here, but honestly, if you're going to spend this kind of money, I'd almost tell them to try to push them up to the Titan X3, especially because these prices for the X3, you never will pay this for the X3 unless you like buy it outright. Titan has a sale like every other week on this, or you can get it scratch and dent. Easily, you can get this rack for under $500, the Titan X3. So we're talking about $400 for this one. And I can probably get this one for like $499 or less. it's probably worth getting the Titan X3. This is like my bang to like what I would recommend to most people who want to go 3x3, lifting at home. I think one of these two racks is like the rack to get if you're like a serious lifter. You are the type of person that really needs to go premium. I would tell you to go to the Rep PR5000 or Rogue RM3. These would be the racks that I'm looking at here. And the reason I say that here, I really like the attachments by Rep. I like the attachments by Rogue, but another disadvantage of 1-inch is that the attachments are more money because they use more steel, like a 1-inch versus 5/8. So they are more pricey. So when you buy a more premium rack, every attachment, every J cup, everything you buy is going to also add considerably more money. You can probably buy an X3 with all the attachments you want for less than just the cost of one of these racks. So all different things to take into consideration. What I recommend that you do is you kind of figure out like where you are in your lifting journey, what you want. You're brand new beginner, like consider one of these like would be my go-to. But I think if you're looking at the west side spacing and you like it, I would really consider one of the Titan racks. You like the 1-inch, I think the Rep or Rogue are the ways to go. But go ahead, take a look at all those websites and play with all the options and see like what attachments would I actually use? Like which of these make sense for me? Like do any of these make sense for me? Like are any of these good? And also like measure out your space, the height, the width, like how, especially the depth, like how much space do you need to work with? And find the perfect rack for you. I couldn't tell you, like, I think any of these, if I went to your house and you had any of these listed on here, I'd say, wow, this is awesome. Great rack. Like, they're all really good. They all have advantages and disadvantages. So go play around and see what you like. Later, all.